Hello everyone and welcome to the latest installment of Drone TV. I'm your host, Patrick Egan. Today we are in beautiful Ontario, California, and we are here for the AMA Expo 2014, Ontario Convention Center, and we are here today trying to ascertain what's going on here. We've already been inside. We've been looking around, and what we have noticed is that I would say that there is a lot more attention being paid to, let's say, small unmanned aircraft systems. And I think people are starting to see the handwriting on the wall that this business is going to take off, and that's where the money's going to be in the future of this industry. We're also here to hear from Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration Office, Mr. Jim Williams. He is going to talk today. They're going to do a little FAA workshop. We're going to be a part of that. We're also going to sign a MOU with AMA and FAA, and basically I've already seen that document, and it is on been posted on the SUAS News website. And what it says in that document is basically we're going to work together on the regulation for, let's say, the RC hobby, and finally that's going to look like something that's a two-way street. And I think that that's high time that that's been signed. It's actually been years that should have been signed, but anyway, that ought to be historic. We're going to see that. Also, President of AUVSI, Mike Toscano, is here, and I don't think it's too far of a stretch to think that obviously something is afoot, so maybe we'll hear more about that. If the audio is good inside, we'll play that straight. If not, we will kind of talk about what transpired. Anyway, let's go on inside and see what's going on.
Jim is going to start out. He's going to give us an overview of the FAA activity and so forth for 10 minutes or approximately 10 minutes. Then Michael will do likewise with AUVSI, and then Rich will do likewise with AMA.
This afternoon we're going to formalize an agreement that will improve our relationship between AMA and the FAA, truly one of cooperation for safety. But recent headlines have focused on our selection of the 6 UAS test sites. Now, these test sites are an important milestone, but it's good to understand that there's a lot of heavy lifting that still has to go on to get them up and running. We are required by our authorization law from Congress to get the first one up and running within 180 days, and my team is working, full bore to make sure that that happens. UAS offer many opportunities for the public good, from firefighting support to aerial photography, studying remote resources, search and rescue, and people are coming up with more ideas every day about great ways to use this amazing new technology. And so it's no surprise that there's an increasing demand for access to the national airspace system across the civil sector of UAS operations. Now, later this year, the FAA will be releasing the long-awaited Notice of Proposed Rulemaking for Small Unmanned Aircraft. The new rule will represent a significant step toward UAS integration into the national airspace. The industry forecasts, mostly from folks here on my left, Michael and company and AUVSI have done a great forecast of the industry going forward, say that that's going to be the most significant growth sector economically for UAS. So UAS and the integration in the national airspace is not simple. It's a complex endeavor. Now, since the FAA's primary mission is to ensure the safety of the flying public and to protect people and property on the ground, we must ensure, as we integrate UAS, we adequately address all the safety risks. So the integration of UAS will be incremental. It's not going to be a big bang approach. We must ensure that UAS have the ability to detect and avoid other aircraft, and that we have proper procedures in place to mitigate the risk of this new operation. Our challenge is daunting. While we have made significant progress since I came on board 18 months ago, there's much more to be done. But with my dedicated team at the FAA and our partner agencies and the Department of Defense and NASA, I'm confident that we will successfully address these challenges and see expanded safe use of UAS in the national airspace. So what does this mean for the modeling community? This afternoon, the FAA and the AMA will sign the first ever memorandum of understanding that will formalize our working relationship and establish a partnership for advancing safe, model UAS operations. You can help spread the word on safety. If you witness an unsafe UAS model operations away from an AMA airfield, encourage the operator to follow safe practices like you do. If they don't listen to you, report them to us. We'll talk to them and explain to them the rules. So just call your local flight standards district office and we'll explain it to them. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about using model aircraft for commercial purposes. But the fact of the matter is that commercial operations, except with a certified aircraft under specific operational parameters, are not currently permitted. Model operations has always been limited to those who fly their aircraft as a hobby or for recreational purposes. And they cannot be operated for compensation. So you can't claim to be a modeler and then sell the pictures you took of Jennifer Aniston or Beyonce to a tabloid. Can't do that. Until the FAA completes rulemaking or publishes other policy guidelines on small UAS operations, this restriction will remain in effect. Safe model UAS operations, no matter where they are or who's at the controls, will help ensure that this industry continues to grow and bring the joy of recreation or hobby flying to more people than ever before. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to hearing the comments of the rest of the panel and to answering your questions.
Thank you, Jim. Michael?
Well, thank you. What Jim articulated is that everybody in this room is really not the problem. It's the ones that aren't here, as he mentioned. And we can't get away from that. So if I was in the audience, I put myself in your shoes, the question you should ask is, why do we want to fly these UAS? So why do we want to do this? And I looked at what I call the top three. The first one is for jobs and for economic benefit money. Secondly, it's to be more effective, more efficient, and to save lives. This technology can save lives, whether it's search and rescue, whether it's firefighting, whether it's a variety of other platform aspects that we can talk about, and I'll get into that also a little bit later. And the third reason is digital natives. Okay, you say, what the hell is a digital native? Okay, how many have, show of hands on this one, a child or a grandchild below the age of 15? They are connected from birth. That generation and the generations to follow are a lot different than many of the people that are in this room. Myself and many of you here are digital immigrants. We migrated to this technology, but we weren't born with this technology. So as those generations come forward, this technology is going to happen. And the question is, how do we do it safely? If it isn't safe, you will not use this technology. And with any revolutionary type technology, there is a safety risk. We can't tell you what that is for a UAS. And this is why we've got to have test sites. This is why we've got to collect that data. Because at some point in time, the fertilizer will hit the ventilation. And when it does, the first question that's going to be is, why did it happen? What did you do to prevent it from taking place? So all of you that want to use this technology for a commercial application, make money, create jobs, be more effective, more efficient, and save lives, have to understand that we can't do that until we understand what that safety side is.
When people ask me the question, well, why are we involved in this UAS, and more often than not the drone word comes up, people are coming into the hobby now because they see it on the internet. They saw something on YouTube. They even saw something that the media put in a newscast. And they saw it in the Brookstone or the Sky Mall magazine in the seat back pocket on the airplane when they were flying from point A to point B. And they're not entering the hobby with that mentoring process that talks to them about the safe operation, the responsible application of the activity. So we really need to make sure that we reach out to this emerging community in a way that welcomes them in and also educates them to the safe operations.
This is, everybody wants the run, and that's what Amazon and Jeff Bezos showed you. That was a run capability. We still have to do the crawl and the walk. Okay, we know what the run looks like, and everybody thinks that's what I want right now today. But we have to crawl, we have to walk.
And like it or not, the FAA has the responsibility to regulate anything that flies.
There was a historic signing of an MOU between the FAA and AMA. And Rich, what does that mean to you?
But actually is one step forward in a process that we started, that you're well aware of, 6 years ago in 2008 when FAA commissioned its first aviation rulemaking committee and started working on enabling regulation for the unmanned aircraft industry to allow it to start flying in the national airspace. And a segment of that industry is obviously recreational UAS, or what we call model aircraft, that have been around for decades. AMA was founded in 1936. Model airplanes have been flying the national airspace since the Wright brothers' time. So it is a segment of the industry that has been flying safely, effectively, and somewhat seamlessly within the national airspace for a long time. But we're adding to that now another element or many other layers of unmanned aircraft and the layers of the industry that has pretty much brought the need for official regulation on how these aircraft are going to operate alongside or integrated with manned aircraft. So in the process, AMA, the Academy of Aeronautics, has been working with the FAA on, one, trying to make sure that all the regulations that are in play are not going to be detrimental to an activity that's been going on for years, but two, to help them put a effective and realistic and a useful approach to the regulatory industry. And that's been a challenge, as you know.
Right.
There's a lot of different viewpoints as to how that should happen and why it should happen and how it should be implemented. And I think there's a fair amount of misunderstanding, misinformation about what I call the small UAS. Those aircraft, those platforms that are relatively low risk, that are frangible, a term that we struggled with a few years ago, and that really do not really necessitate onerous or extensive regulation. And the challenge is to make sure that this segment of the community doesn't get brushed with the same brush as the entire industry, where there is need for more specific regulation when you start looking at larger, more sophisticated platforms that do bring with it a level of risk.
Right, and going back on that historically, as we were on the small UAS arc together, and I know as this kind of unfolded and came about, there was a lot of apprehension because we did talk about that on the arc of how the safety record that the modelers had in that long time since the AMA came together. And I kind of felt the same way. I was on Rich's subcommittee on the ARC, and I really felt that the safety record of the modelers had been so good that really I didn't even know why you guys were there. So flashing forward where we are now, do you think that we should have been left out? Do you kind of concede that yes, the modeler needs some regulation, or are you just thinking we're really good on our own personally, and we should be kind of left alone? What's your view on that?
Well, I guess the approach I would take, and my belief is that what we call community-based programming, the idea of a community coming together, working out the rules, agreeing to abide by those rules, and continually monitoring the activity to make sure that those rules are effective and people are abiding by them. That has proven effectively for years, and we think that could be extended at least to some segments of the emerging UAS communities. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges, is that the newer platforms, the newer activity is actually emerging from the non-traditional model aircraft community. It's also bringing this technology and bringing these platforms into non-traditional environments, mm-hmm. where you don't, in the past, wouldn't normally see a model aircraft operating, because a lot of this has to do with using the platform for a purpose, to accomplish something. And those somethings usually aren't at the local model airplane field. They're somewhere in the neighborhood, somewhere in an industrial area, somewhere in a park setting. So there is need for further development in terms of rules, but at the low end of the scale, I still believe that community-based programming long-term is going to be much more effective and much more manageable. I think it's going to be a real challenge for a regulatory body to try and get their arms around that segment of the community. I mean, if you compare it to the manned aviation community, where the pilot actually sits in the aircraft and he's putting his life on the line, you know, and he's going through the process of certification and learning the skills and learning the knowledge, is sort of a self-preservation effort. The unmanned aircraft pilot may not even think of himself as a pilot to begin with, and certainly isn't concerned with those issues in terms of self-preservations and the operation of the aircraft in that regard. And they're not operating off of traditional locations. They don't come off of airports. They don't come off of heliports or seaports. They come off of balconies in Manhattan or
and other venues. Well, you know, you're hitting on some good points, but I do think that one of the things, you know, from my own experience of being involved in this effort, is the community-based group. And I think we both saw that. I think we were a little aghast or taken aback during the ARC at some of the assumptions about model aviation, or even small UAS for that matter, that when it comes from the community, it's a bunch of people that understand how we operate, why we operate, and the type of operations we do. And you know, I tell people a lot about the demonstration that you'd put on, the AMA demonstration that you had put on, and I mean, the guys from the FAA were just like, they couldn't believe what was going on at the field, and those were just normal. It was all normal stuff that you would see every weekend at any AMA field, and people were, and even before that, there were some people that were on the ARC who were like, wow, you know, I'm really, you know, kind of curious what Rich is going to, let's say, portray the model community as, and my hat was off to you because you gave me unvarnished. This is just kind of what happens at a AMA field. There was no hiding anything. It was totally open and honest, which I think I was found refreshing. And they were totally, I think they were really surprised on what happened. And maybe give us a little perspective.
Well, I think you're right, and that was the intent, was to give them a very frank look at model aircraft activities and what happens at the local flying field. And the hobby has really blossomed and diversified over the years, and technology has made that happen. As you saw out there, turbine-powered aircraft, very sophisticated rotor aircraft, large model aircraft. It's not the traditional, even when we were kids, you know, flying around in circles with a control line, or even the very beginning trainer RC aircraft that came in the 60s and 70s. I mean, this technology, the advancements in the radio equipment, the engine technologies, the composite material technologies, all that have really served to make this hobby grow and blossom, as I might call it, where all kinds of different aspects of it. And I know that the speed of the turbine engines, turbine-powered aircraft, caused some interest. I don't think they were quite aware of what our soaring community does in terms of competing in thermal soaring and how that is conducted and where they end up. But I thought it was important that they understand that, so that hopefully that they can see that not only does it happen, but it happens in a safe and it happens in a controlled environment.
Well, again, my hat's really off to you and AMA, because you guys are one of the groups that have totally said, okay, hey, we're going to open this up to the daylight, come and see, and then here's our statistics, and here's our safety record, and this is what we do. You didn't try to hide anything or hold anything back. This is what we're doing, and you know, come and see what we want to do and how we want to move into the future. So finally, I think the last question I have for you is, and I know we've kind of talked about this through the past and had conversation about this, but how do you feel moving forward? Are you encouraged? Are you apprehensive? How do you feel?
I'd say I'm more encouraged today than I was 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, that's good.
There was certainly a point in time, even coming out of the ARC, and you know that they had a sort of a dual path approach to recreational UAS. Those individuals or operators that wanted to operate within a community set of standards, and those that would pretty much do it on their own under whatever regulatory structure the FAA would provide. When we started getting into even the standards-based approach that came out of that, we were looking at a significant amount of regulatory from a standards perspective requirements. I mean, if you compare it to ultralights, Part 103 is 3/4 of a page. We were going to end up with a 100-plus page document in the standards for model aircraft. And quite honestly, we started becoming concerned that this one, it was going to be overly onerous, but really what our concern was, it was going to be ignored.
Right.
You were going to have a document that was so intense and so intimidating to a really non-aviator, an aviation enthusiast, but a non-aviator, that he's going to go one of two things. He's either going to give up the hobby and say, no, this is just too complicated, or he's going to ignore that and go and do what he wants to do anyhow, or he or she. So we really were looking for a better resolution, and that's where Congress helped us out with the reauthorization bill.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, that the what's called the Special Rule for Model Aircraft as part of the FAA Modernization Reform Act really kind of set the stage for readjusting this process and brought FAA back to the table to take a fresher look at this. And as I mentioned in the remarks earlier today, with Jim Williams coming on board with the UAS Integration Office has made a significant difference too. He really has kind of taken a open book approach to this, tried to go into it with an open mind and realizing that this is something different than the traditional manned aviation arena that he's dealing with, and trying to come up with workable solutions.
Well, it's a difficult job, and I know I've kind of given him a very wide berth personally, because I hear he's a good guy. And, he is trying to move the ball forward. I realize he's got a difficult position to be in, but I would agree with you. The congressional mandate was encouraging, as in the ARC, as you probably recall when it was the air traffic office, people were saying, we're going to write the rules for RC aircraft, and you remember I did not take kindly to that notion.
I don't think either one of us did.
Yeah, we were a little, I was just like, huh? But anyway, so that's good news, and I'm encouraged to hear that. And again, thank you, sir, for all the work that you do for the hobby.
Thank you, your efforts in keeping this issue on the hot plate.
I appreciate that. Thanks
You bet.
again.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we came, we saw, we heard, we saw the historic MOU. We also got to hear from Jim Williams from the UASIO. We got a little information from him, little perspective. We also got to talk to Rich Hansen, which was a very good historical perspective. And we got to hear from some other people in the unmanned aircraft community. I will say again, the takeaway, that a lot of these people see the business future in the small unmanned aircraft systems world, in the commercial world. Everybody's talking about it. They're talking about getting in that business sector because that's where the money's at. I couldn't agree more. I've been saying that for years. I think it's upward and onward. This is going to be another great show. Hopefully, we did talk to some people off the record, and hopefully we talked about maybe working more together to get the safety and information disseminated to people outside of this direct community, to the general public, kind of assuage some of the fears, and then also make this the skies safer for everyone, all the stakeholders involved. For everyone at SUS News, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.